Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're joining me from part 1, thank you so much for continuing. So where I left off was Robert Baratheon and Ned Stark were in the crypts of Winterfell, pretty much visiting Ned Stark's sister who passed away and Robert Baratheon's true love, which the old king, the Mad King, that's his nickname, the Mad King Aerys Targaryen II, apparently had something to do with her death, and apparently Robert Baratheon had something to do with pretty much, obviously, Aerys Targaryen not being king anymore. He did something. He obviously took it by force. So, in that scene also, that Robert plans for, as Ned feared, for Ned to become right hand of the king. And Ned pretty much doesn't really have a choice. He's the king, and it's also his friend. And Jon Arryn was what kept Robert Baratheon in line and in check. And I guess Ned can do the same thing for Robert, so he does agree. He's pretty upset by it, but he does. So then in the next scene, we're introduced to another character who's, who I like actually. He's a cool character. Tyrion Lannister. He is a little person. They nickname him the Imp, and we find him in the television show at a brothel with a woman that he is banging. And I just want to point out, in the book series, Tyrion Lannister is actually extremely strange looking. Not just because of his height, but his physical features. He's supposedly in the book supposed to have a very large, prominent, bulging forehead with two different colored eyes. One is very light and the other one is extremely dark. And people are very offset by that look that he gives them with those two different color eyes. But in the book, you're actually you're aware that this guy Tyrion is very clever. You just know that he's good with words, and he's just he has wit. So Jaime walks in, his older brother, and you can see like a little scene or something involving those two together, and I guess they like each other and everything. So that scene is gone. So now we're introduced to two new characters, Daenerys and Viserys. These characters are Targaryens. They're the descendants of the Targaryen family line, which has ruled the Seven Kingdoms for a very long time, which ended with the reign of the Mad King, which Robert Baratheon saw the end to that. And it's not really mentioned in the series that much. It may be mentioned like once or twice, but there's no harm in knowing this, even from the very first episode, that there's no spoilers with these videos either. That Daenerys and Viserys are the son and daughter of Aerys Targaryen II, who was the Mad King and the last king before Robert Baratheon. So these two, you're introduced to them. It's strange because they're brother and sister, and even in the book, same exact thing. He sees her without clothes on and inspects her body because he's planning on wedding her to someone that it's up to him, and he's the one that made this decision, so he's planning to make everything perfect. And so he mentioned something about not wanting to wake the dragon if she displeases him, which you look at this guy and you're like, what a bitch. But anyway, so the next scene, I believe, yes, the next scene is the introduction between Daenerys, the daughter of the Mad King, who is about 15 years old, I think, in the book. she meets Khal Drogo for the first time, who she is basically being forced to wed, and he is Dothraki, and you see him, and Viserys considers their people savages, and he like pisses all over them and everything, meaning that he doesn't literally piss on them, but like he insults them a lot, insults their culture, not to their faces obviously, because he'd be killed in a fucking second. But they are they're primitive. They're more like they're warrior based. They're almost like I'd relate them to like not so much as Native Americans, but almost like Aztecs or Mayans or something, with a lot of leather. They don't wear any armor or chainmail or anything like that. But so a Dothraki warrior shows his skill in battle and how good he is with fighting, with growing his hair out long, and if he's defeated in battle, or if he's killed, or if he's in a battle or in some type of confrontation or a fight or something, but it's not to the death, or if he survives the encounter but doesn't get the upper hand in the situation, his hair, or if it's long enough to be put in a braid, will be cut. So the longer the braid or the longer the hair, the more renowned and powerful and skilled that Dothraki person is. So Khal Drogo, who's introduced, has a braid that's all the way down to his waist. So he's the best warrior. He's the leader of his Dothraki Khalasar. That's what his group of almost 100,000 people are called, or herd. And he's probably one of the best killers in all of the land. So I didn't point out that they're not in the Seven Kingdoms. They're across a narrow area of ocean, and across the ocean there's they were staying at a place because they had to flee when Robert Baratheon became king. So they're in an area called Penthos, and they're staying at a lord's house who's been letting them stay there for about a year now. So she meets them there. Khal Drogo and 3 other riders who are known as his blood riders, who are like his brothers. I'll get more into that discussion later, but meet them there and are introduced to Dany, or that's her nickname, Daenerys, and he leaves, and after that there's a discussion with Viserys and Daenerys, and Viserys says, this is after when Daenerys says that she does not want to marry him. Viserys says to her that in order for them to go home, you have to marry this guy so I can get their army or their people to go get my kingdom back, which he feels is rightfully his, which I don't think it is, in my opinion. I have a video about Daenerys, another separate video that's already on YouTube. I'd appreciate it if you visited it, but only watch it if you're up to the last episode of season 1. Okay? So anyway, Viserys says to Dany that I will let Khal Drogo and his entire army fuck you, including the horses, if that's what it took to get my throne back. Which shows that he has no sympathy or love for his sister, who is his family, and he has no regard for just any personal respect. And he'll do anything to get his so-called kingdom back. So I have to kind of move on fast because this is my last video to do for this episode, and it has to be 15 minutes long. So now, in the next scene we have Sansa just begging to be married to the prince, who is Robert Baratheon's son. Sansa wants to marry him, and she's like begging like a little girl to be married to him. She doesn't even know him. But anyway, so now there's a feast going on at Winterfell to welcome the king, and it's like a giant feast, and the king is like going crazy. And in the book, it's a lot worse for what the king does. He like is like really making out with like maids and stuff like that, and slapping their asses and going crazy and everything. In the episode, they kind of dull it down to him just like hugging and kind of like smooching another woman. But anyway, the queen is watching all that happen and everything, and she's pissed. So now there's a scene with Tyrion and Jon, which is a scene that I like a lot, because they're very like they're characters that are seen as outsiders in their own family. And Tyrion pretty much points out that Jon is a bastard, which I'm sure he very well knew, but he says to him, you should wear that as a cloak, almost like a shield against anyone who feels that it can insult you, because you can't be hurt by it if you do that. And Jon pretty much says, what the hell do you know about being a bastard? And Tyrion says, all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. Which it's, you know, like there's a connection between these two characters, and it's pretty cool. So now a man arrives, and I guess he's the uncle to the Stark children, and he's the brother of Ned Stark. His name is Benjen, and there's like a nice greeting between him and Jon wants to join the Night's Watch, but he tells him like to join the Night's Watch you can't have children, you can't marry anyone, and well, you can't have children or marry anyone right after you join. If you have all those things before you join, that's fine, but you have to give those up. So now after that, you see a little tension between Ned Stark and Jaime Lannister in this scene, and I think it happens in the book, I'm not really sure, but Jaime pretty much insults Ned, saying that he's gotten old and everything, and he probably can't fight anymore, and blah blah blah. Fuck you, Jaime Lannister, you little bitch. Anyway, now there's a scene after the feast and everything, it's nighttime, and Catelyn and Ned are in bed. And in the book, they've actually just finished having sex, I think. So people in the show don't really know that Ned and Catelyn still have a sex life. They do, which isn't really that important. But anyway, so Maester Luwin comes in, Maester Luwin is basically Winterfell's like doctor. He's the person that takes care of the ravens that deliver messages, and he's like a professor almost too. He studies. He's a smart man, and so they get news from Catelyn's sister saying that she's fled her home, and she was married to Jon Arryn, the old right hand of the king who died, and she feels that he was murdered by the Lannisters, who are in Winterfell right now, who she's pretty much welcomed to her house and everything. And Ned and her are very distraught by this news, and they get all panicked and everything like that, but what else can they do? So now after that, there was a Dothraki wedding for Daenerys and Khal Drogo, which happened very quickly. So during this wedding, there's dancing and music playing and feasting, but there's also a lot of weird things going on, like people fucking everywhere, and this is exactly how it is in the book. And in the book, they explain it a lot more vulgar. It's a lot more vulgar in the book, trust me. And if you think that was vulgar on television, it's not as bad. Anyway, I'm almost reaching 15 minutes, so I gotta hurry up. So in the wedding, Daenerys is given gifts, and her best and mighty gift is 3 dragon eggs that she received from the guy's house, house she was staying at. And you're also introduced to a knight who was part of the Seven Kingdoms named Ser Jorah Mormont. And so after the wedding, Khal Drogo ends up mounting Daenerys, and she's not very happy about that. So then in the next scene, Ned goes off for a hunt, leaves and goes off for a hunt with the king, Robert Baratheon, but and he nods to Brandon saying goodbye. So, and then in the next scene, Brandon is climbing and he hears moaning noises, and he sees the queen, Cersei, having sex with her brother, Jaime. And he gets caught, Bran gets caught seeing that, and Jaime pushes him out of the window. And that's when the episode ends. So this is the end of this video right here, and you guys, I greatly appreciate you guys spending time watching these videos. And if you can please comment or like or dislike these videos. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thanks a lot, you guys.